This is really weird because yo estoy tratando de ver cómo es que nosotros vamos a hablar because this is usually something that we do all the time. How are you knowing that this is being recorded right now? How do you feel?
First and foremost, let me just say that I was tricked into coming here.
Oh, really?
So,
O sea, tú no sabías que you were coming to do this.
oh yeah,
No, because
but not to that extent.
Go
ahead.
You didn't know there was going to be 3 cameras, que Wilmer iba a estar grabando, todo el equipo de producción de él venía.
I thought I was going to brunch.
Oh, you thought you were going to brunch. No, because usually this is something that we talked on a regular. Simplemente es algo que hablamos de noche, nos ponemos a hablar de nuestro día a día, cómo estamos, cómo nos sentimos. By the way, how you feeling?
Well, you asked me that already, but I'm feeling
Are you nervous? Are you a little bit nervous?
No.
Is it like when we were getting married in Santo Domingo, Las Terrenas?
No.
Is that the same? Are you getting the same butterflies or?
Hey, why am I in interrogation here?
I'm the one that usually asks questions, but we can ask each other, obviously. Pero yo estoy un poquito nervioso, fíjate. ¿Sí?
Well, you see, this is how I see it.
How do
We
you see
usually
it?
have a home business meeting, so
Okay.
I think we can treat it as such. This is our home.
Esto es una
business
reunión de
meeting.
negocio. ¿Cómo está el presupuesto del mes? ¿Estamos bien?
Yeah, I think everybody's suffering right now.
Right. But the reason we wanted it to do this, clearly, it's been a journey of its... It's been an amazing journey, but it's been a journey con ups and downs. Y la gente a lo mejor se pregunta por qué están aquí hablando Eliecer y Erick si siempre mantienen su vida bien privada, solamente hay algunas cosas que sabemos, pero la gente le gusta saber las cosas de nosotros por alguna situación u otra. Pero más que eso, I think the reason we decided to do this is because there's a lot of information that we can provide now that we have a little more experience. I mean, it's only been a couple of months since Cataleya was born, pero decidimos de hablar desde antes de su nacimiento hasta ya ahora que la niña está con nosotros y que estamos sumamente bendecidos. Pero si yo te pregunto, why are we doing this podcast? Why are we talking about our journey through international surrogacy and now that we have this beautiful baby? Why do you think we're doing this?
Well, here are my thoughts on it. Well, here's the reality. Here's the factual component of it. So I would be remiss if I didn't, state the obvious or the facts is that I didn't want kids.
Okay.
That's number one.
But that's not I'm asking you, why are we doing this podcast now that you didn't want kids?
To it the same way I was tricked into this podcast.
Es mi culpa.
However, I think the reason why we're doing this is because it felt so unattainable for us to start our family. And I think that when we started our journey, it seemed like, not that we weren't worth having a family. Society has its way of kind of impinging on you that, you guys can't be dads or it's not the right way to go. So that was phase number one. Then phase number two was the whole, when we went to our first meeting, it seemed insane and impossible. It was unattainable. There's no way you can actually start your own family. And so that's why we're here, because we did it. And to be quite frank and honest with you, it wasn't as bad and tough as we thought it would be, once we start the process. So we're here to provide more information and to show others and to share our stories so that others know that, hey, look, you can do it too.
And also, we want to share our stories, but at the same time that it's been a beautiful experience, muchas de las cosas que nos han llegado a nosotros también ha sido comentarios negativos, que la gente dice que no somos las personas adecuadas para tener una familia, y de eso también vamos a estar hablando, de lo que se siente tener ese ataque a través de las redes sociales, cómo explicamos a nuestra familia de que nos vamos a convertir en padres a través de la gestación subrogada. So it's a lot of information that we're going to try to provide from our own perspective. It's a lot of information that is going to come out de una manera genuina. And we really just want to be here talking. Y yo me acuerdo de esa primera reunión that you mentioned, that when we went to that first meeting because we wanted to be parents, that was in 2018 in New Jersey, que fuimos a esa reunión, right?
It was New York.
It was in New York. I was in New York in 2018. Y cuando eso nos dijeron sí, porque para convertirse en padres a través de la gestación necesita por lo menos de $170,000. Fue un precio así que nosotros dijimos, Dios mío, pero ¿y cómo? Ni siquiera, no se puede. Desafortunadamente, no, esto es algo que no lo vamos a poder hacer. So, como tú dijiste en ese entonces, we thought that it was impossible to do it because we're like, no, first we want to buy a house. Todavía no estábamos casados. We wanted to get married. So we said, we can't do this. Y ahí fue que entonces decidimos, entonces, ¿cómo vamos a crear nuestra familia? And then we looked to different options.
Yeah.
La adopción.
Well, first and foremost, let me say the jury was still out. We were not married.
No, we were not married, yeah.
We still weren't sure where we wanted to be in our lives. And when they said $170,000, we went out for lunch. We left early, we went out to lunch and drinks. Because we were like, okay, now that's a far stretch. But no, one of the things that you hear about when you're when you're going through the whole process, surrogacy, starting your whole family, and so on, is that every experience is unique. Every journey is different, and that holds to be true.
Yeah.
But I will say, when you're kind of dissecting every story, there's a lot of factual information that's there that can carry you through, but it does become I don't want to say a community, but it becomes a process that, once you're in it, thankfully, my experience, me personally, and I'm sure the same for you too, is that listening to other stories made it so much easier to navigate that storm. And it's not just, hearing the $170,000 and hearing it's just knowing that you went from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, progressively getting through a process. But it's good.
But at the same time, when we heard $170,000, the first thing that went through our minds,
let's go for lunch and drinks.
¿De dónde vamos a sacar este dinero? O sea, tenemos un trabajo que afortunadamente sí teníamos y aún continuamos trabajando de una manera que nos ayuda a vivir una vida cómoda, pero no es que podíamos desembolsar, ¿no? Just come out with $170,000. So that's...
It wasn't just $170,000. It was also the fact that they tell you that it was $170,000 for the first attempt.
Yeah, and you didn't know,
if it was
going to take or not. Because obviously there's a lot of components that go into surrogacy. Hay cosas que son también por la madre naturaleza, que hay cosas que son pues médicas y químicas también. Uno se lo deja a la madre naturaleza a ver si funciona. Entonces, what do you remember? So we went out for drinks. And to have lunch, because we're like, nah, we're not doing this. We're not going to come out with $170,000. We still got to get married, right? We were planning the wedding. So ahí fue que decidimos, vamos a buscar a otras opciones para convertirnos en padres y crear nuestra familia. So we put that on hold. The whole surrogacy just went on hold. Nos casamos y ahí fue que decidimos entonces, bueno, vamos a adoptar. Remember? We wanted to adopt.
Well, I remember, but a better question. Let's start from the emotional component.
Okay.
Right? For you, why did you want to become a parent? Why did you want to be a dad?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be a dad. I remember when I came out to my mom, which was after Christmas 2015, after our first Christmas together. Mami me pregunta dos cosas. She's like, ¿me vas a dar nietos? ¿O te vas a disfrazar o te vas a cambiar como las mujeres que veo en el show de Cristina? Los hombres como los del show de Cristina que se visten de mujeres. Remember? Those are the two questions from my mom.
Wait, we're going to take a quick pause for a second. His mom thought I was his roommate.
Oh, yeah.
In a one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
With two dogs. Dressed up as two elves.
Two elves. Yeah, I remember. That was Christmas of 2015.
Sleeping in the same bed.
That was for Christmas. So my mom found out that I was gay because of a TV show, un programa de chismes que subieron la foto de un anillo que tú me regalaste de compromiso, que ni siquiera era un anillo de un engagement ring ni nada de eso. Y ahí fue que yo le dije, sí, mami, pues Erick es mi pareja, no es mi compañero de habitación, de apartamento. He's not my roommate. Y ahí que ella me pregunta, ¿are you going to give me nietos o vas a ser de las personas que se visten de mujeres? Yo le dije, no, mami, este soy yo y así seré y sí te voy a dar nietos. Pero besides that, I always knew I wanted to be a dad because yo siempre he dicho que de qué vale uno estar aquí si no tiene algo que dar a otra persona o dar ese amor para continuar con el legado que tú quieres dejar en esta tierra. And there's so much love that we have. There's so much love that as a couple we are able to provide. Y ese amor solamente siguió creciendo once we started, a relationship. So, yo creo que para responderte, siempre estuvo ahí. I always wanted to be a dad. Always. How? I don't know. But I always knew I wanted to be a dad. What about you? Well, you were a dad. La gente no sabe,
well,
pero...
I am a dad.
I'm sorry, you are a dad. But what I was going to say is that you were already a dad.
Yes.
Before we met. Las personas no saben, pero Erick tiene una hija que tiene 21 años ya, 20, 21, yeah. 20.
I was only 9 when she was born.
So, entonces, él tenía 9 años.
Crazy,
So, entonces
I
ya
know.
Eric ya
Super
venía
early.
con eso. Ya venía con su hija, que también es otra cosa, cómo acoplamos la familia en esta dinámica, porque es una familia inusual. Ya Eric tiene su hija, entonces nosotros queremos tener nuestros hijos y tener todo eso. So pero yours was not planned, right? When you had your first
Well, to answer
daughter.
your question, why did I want to be a dad first?
Exactly.
It's like we go through this every time we have our business meetings. It's like he flies off the handle. I am a dad. I had my daughter when I was fairly young, and I guess I missed out on the experience of being a dad. When you're a young dad, you're selfishly focused on yourself.
Now, I'm sure people are asking this. Did you know you were gay when you had your daughter?
No, not at the time. I wasn't 100% sure. I wasn't where I was raised. It was a different background, right? So there were a lot of like open minds, but more so open sexually minds. So that's a whole other story, a whole other episode.
Yeah. I mean, as you can see, we go all over the place. So, Wilmer,
but to answer,
si tú te ves que estamos en todas las partes, todos lados, you let me know. Or producer Wilmer is behind the scene. We're trying to make this as professional as possible.
But to answer your question, when the first time around, I was focused on providing for my daughter, and also my career and my educational goals, that you're so blinded by moving forward that you unintentionally, in my case, neglect and miss out on so many moments. Hence why I didn't want kids later, because I felt like, okay, been there, done that. How do you go and do this all over again? However, I read this. It was like this blog, or I don't know, it was like an article online, and the guy shared having kids like after a certain age, and he said it's different now because I lived the first half of my life for me, and now I can live the second half of my life for someone.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there was so much beauty in those words, where I felt that I felt like we were at a point in our relationship and our careers that we've gained so much success. We're very successful. We were doing so well. And what good is it if you can't share with anyone, right? And at that point, I felt we have so much to give, but also so much love to give, and you were kind of boring after a while.
But then, what
so that's why.
Thank you for that.
Hence why. No, I'm just kidding. Hence why it's why not? Why not? So it all started as a why not?
But you didn't want to be a dad. So knowing that I wanted to be a dad, was that something that was bothering you?
It wasn't bothering me. I just felt
was that something like, oh, this is not the guy for me because he wants to be a dad?
No. I think every relationship is different and it requires compromise. But I truly felt that who am I to steal that from you? So if that's what you wanted, then I had no problem, joining you for the journey. Now, full disclosure, it wasn't that, this guy. It just I felt like it was like I was gonna be responsible for this creature.
Okay.
And sure enough, I was right.
Oh yeah.
But I felt like it was become my problem, and now I'm happy to report that it has. Yes, and I love it. But he's been very helpful too.
Oh, so you're saying that you're the responsible one?
I'm the responsible.
Oh, so I'm not responsible. Who wakes up every morning at 2, 3, 4?
Me.
And what did I do?
Yeah. So no, but anyway, I said, who am I to take that from? That's what relationships are all about compromise. There's things that you want that I don't agree with. There's things that I want that I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, you have to take a chance on each other.
So we can definitely agree that we decided to become dads through international surrogacy because we wanted to, number one, grow our family. Number two, we knew that there was so much more now than just you and I.
We agreed that we wanted to become parents for that reason. Mm-hmm. We decided on international surrogacy
after
because we were pissed.
Yes. Okay, so there you go. So we started going to that meeting. That money was a big factor. We're like, we cannot do it. Let's go for the other option. That's when we were getting married, we found out about foster kids, being foster dads and adopting because of that story of the whole placenta bridge in Santo Domingo, right? When our wedding planner told us the whole thing that a lot of kids are left under the bridge in Samaná and not all the kids get taken away to a home. especially depending on the color of your skin. Eso fue muy impactante cuando nos dijeron eso.
Yeah. Well, let's start with our first cheers. Right?
Okay, we're cheering?
We're cheering.
Okay, let's cheer. Because we got like 15 minutes talking. That's a lot.
No, not because it's 15 minutes talking. It's because I think it's important to acknowledge anyone who's fostered out there will understand this traumatic journey that's fostering. And I think anyone who's done it or who can do it, that's it requires some acknowledgement.
Which, by the way, we're gonna have a
episode.
full episode about becoming foster parents and the whole journey of this.
So the first cheers is we actually made it through that whole story.
Okay.
Cheers.
All right.
Okay.
So we were pissed.
So we were pissed. And I'm going to sum it up because we have a whole other episode where we're going to get to that. Fostering not one of my ideas. That was my beloved's idea.
I'm the one that comes up with the ideas, just like this podcast.
It was a tragic, loving, you name it, journey. But at one point we were so frustrated that we wanted to give up. And the reason why we didn't give up is because we so believed in these kids. And we wanted to really make a difference. And we felt like the system failed them. We felt like their parents failed them. And then, we were so involved at this point that we had to see it through. But we also acknowledge that, one of the recurrent things that they tell you when you're fostering is that you have to remember those are not your kids. Those are not your kids. And then
that they can be taken away at any time.
Yeah, so then one day we decided that, okay, fine, they're not our kids. So then let's go out and get our kids. And then that's how we.
And that's how I started. I remember it was
international search.
It was like around 4 p.m. You were at work. I'm like, listen, I'm going to find out how we can do the surrogacy. I know it's a lot of money we do in the United States. Let's explore other countries.
A lot of money, no guarantees.
No guarantees.
Yeah.
Let's explore other countries. I'm going to get to this and I'm going to get to this. So it was in 2021, October of 2021. That's when I said I found our first appointment to talk about international surrogacy. And that's when we had that appointment and they gave us options that we can do it in Canada, in Mexico, in Argentina, and también Colombia.
And where's the...
And Ukraine.
Ukraine,
which we didn't... Well, things happened for a reason at that time because... Unfortunately, the war came and that was a big mess there. So I'm glad we didn't choose Ukraine for this journey. Pero entonces ahí fue que decidimos, bueno, pues lo vamos a hacer. Y el país que decidimos.
Well, we didn't decide at that moment yet.
The country.
We didn't decide on doing it yet because we had one of our home business meetings. We were in the process of purchasing our first. Investment home or first, summer home. So
vacation home.
Our vacation home. So the argument was, can we manage both the vacation home and then surrogacy all in one, which I thought was totally irresponsible. But somehow, some way, we have an apartment and a baby.
And you that are listening to us and that are watching us, that's a good question. Are you able to manage multiple projects at the same time, like with your significant other, whether you're married or you just live with your boyfriend, girlfriend, or it doesn't matter? Let's see.
I'll answer. The short answer is yes.
But it's going to be...
As long as you have one like me, who can manage the project, and then another to complain and push.
Yeah, but the question wasn't for you per se. It was for people that are listening to us and watching us. Let us know what you think on social media. Are you able to manage multiple projects? But then, anyway, so that happened, and we had our first meeting, right? And that's when we decided, okay, we're going to go through the international surrogacy route. And that's when we started doing all the prerequisites, like the requirements before actually going to that first in-person meeting. And that was fun because they do a lot of psychological tests.
Well, I have to tell you and sorry to cut you off, the psychological test was probably not the funniest one, but one of the most bizarre tests I think we've ever
then you have to do a bunch of clinical tests. Clearly you got to do a background check, to make sure that you're healthy, and that's here in the United States before we move forward to going to the country. In our case, we decided that it was going to be in Colombia.
Yes.
So before going to Colombia, this was October of 2021. That's when we started doing all the pre-visits work here in the United States. Let's talk about the psychological test. Do you remember?
I remember it.
Okay.
I mean, there was a series of questions, but they would ask you something, and then you had to draw like a picture for it.
Yeah.
I thought, well, this is so stupid. Like, what's the whole point? Like, what are you getting out of it? And then,
I don't remember the questions though.
I don't remember the questions. We could pull it up later.
But then we had to compare our answers.
Well, aside from we compared the answers later. The interesting part was that someone here said, "Well, hey, can you help me on mine?" And I was like, "I don't think that's how it works. I think psychologically, we make sure you're okay too. So, but
yeah,
that was one of the best parts.
And no, but I think also when we went to, we had to do a sperm count test here in the United States, and that was a funny one because, as you know, we had to go into a room by ourselves. You went to one room, I went to another one, and we had to masturbate. We had to masturbate, and I'm like, that's the first time. I don't want to get to the point that we had to masturbate in Colombia. That one's gonna be when we get to that point. But the one here in the United States, so. We get to this room and it's so cold in there, and I'm like, people are watching us.
Even just getting there that day. First and foremost, not for nothing, I said I don't really need this test.
No, because
I know I have good swimmers.
Well, because you already have your daughter.
But still, you had to go. But the place itself, the facility in the U.S. versus the facility in Colombia. Totally different.
Well, now before you get that, remember I was really scared because when I was in college, I had to see a neurologist because I had some concerns about the structure of my testicles. This is very personal here. These are things that you don't see me saying on the news or on social media. But and they had told me at that time that I may not be able to have kids. They weren't sure. Because my bolitas were not like looking the same. So anyway, so when we went to that test, I'm like, imagínate que me digan que yo no puedo tener hijos, se va todo esto a la chingada, ¿no?
Well, you know what? That's an important note to make, and I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads us to our double process and why we decided on a double process. We were concerned that maybe one might not work.
Yeah, but let's get to the testing part.
I want to get back to what we refer to now as the happy room, right?
The U.S. happy room. First.
The U.S. happy room, because it was very clinical. It was like going to the doctor's office, and it's like everyone knows why you're there. Like if it was super uncomfortable, it was like cheesy. They had like porn ready for you.
Yeah. And you can select which one you want.
Yeah, and it's like, and I remember they're like, okay, don't use lube, and I'm like. No, you can't use lube. You can't use spit. And I'm like, how are you supposed to come?
Ejaculate.
But anyways, all of that aside, that day as a whole, for me personally, I remember I was in a rush. I had to go to work. I was like in the middle of meetings. Not a Zoom call, but I was like in between. I'm like, okay, give me 1 second. And, I'm chatting with folks at work. And it's like weird. Like they have no clue why I'm like hanging up the phone. And so, my personal experience, I walk in. I mean, it was quick for me. I get a picture from someone saying, I don't know what to do.
Wait, I took a picture, not of myself, but like, I'm like this. You cannot see anything in the picture, but you see my legs, and then you see like the monitor in front of me, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I can't even focus.
And I'm like, I'm on my way to work already.
And so we did that, and then we got the results. And then, we didn't know how to read the results. So we contacted our doctor in Colombia, and we're like, are we good to go? Does this mean that we have good swimmers? Because we were so concerned. I'm like, and then it came out that, yes, everything was good to go. So we did the psychological test. We did that part of the clinical exams, and we did all the background checks, making sure that we were not criminals, fingerprints, all that good stuff. We had to do all that. And then it was finally time to go to Colombia, right? So from October 2021, fast forward to March of 2022. That's when we arrived to Colombia.
To
Bogota, Colombia. And we had to go through a similar process there, just straight into the happy room to do it all over again. Now, there they told us that we couldn't have any type of sex, or we couldn't.
We had to abstain
for 5 days. 5 days.
5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
5 to 7 days.
So imagínense eso.
That was torture for sure.
So
you know what? What's crazy about all that is that up to that moment, it didn't feel real. You know, we arrived to Bogota. We can't breathe because of the altitude. We were staying at the W, I think it was. It was super nice that time. But it didn't feel real.
Until we got to the clinic.
No.
Until we signed the contracts.
No, until we were charged.
Until we were charged.
So the American Express was charged the first bill. That's when it became real. But yeah, we met with the doctors. We deposited another sample. We had to wait through 4 to 5 days in Bogota for the results to come back, and we were like nervous because we wanted to get the hell out of there. And we got the results the next day.
Oh yeah, and they say you guys are good to go. Which, but by the way, when we went to the happy room in Bogota, that was pretty quick for you, right? There, because you were ready to go.
I was ready to go.
You were ready to go. I was nervous because they told us that we were.
Actually, that was a nice room.
Yeah, but they told us that we were able to do it together. So I was expecting for us to have a happy, encounter for our future babies together. But then they said, no, you go to one room and then you go to the other room.
I will say the differences between the U.S. room and the Colombia room, that truly was a happy room. That was nice. That was super nice room.
But that one, I was really nervous in that one. I was like, I cannot do this. It took me a long time to, and I wasn't even fully happy.
Well, it's funny. Most people think, you don't realize that you have to go through all these things to get to, the end result. But just imagine the nerves when you're sitting in this room. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor's office and you're getting like a physical and they make you do the urine sample.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And they're like waiting for you to hand it over to them. And everyone's kind of looking at you like, I know what you did. I mean, it's all in your head. I'm sure they're used to it with everyone that goes in and out. But it's just that weird, kind of like, I know what you did. Like, it's a taboo when I'm sure everybody does it.
So we left Bogota 3 days later. We went to San Andres for a little vacation. And of course, now it was time to wait to get the results because now the embryos were going to get fertilized. No, is that correct? Because now they were going to make the embryos and all that good stuff, which then comes a waiting period to...
No, but you skipped a very
which one?
Crucial part. I'm going to summarize it so we don't spend too much time on it. Around this time, we were in the Dominican Republic. I think it was like for New Year's. When we got the notice that we had to pick the
egg donors.
The egg donor.
Which we're going to leave it right there because that's part of what we're going to talk about next.
Okay.
On our next episode.
Okay, so we're going to go over the whole egg donor process. But, okay, well, we'll talk about that next time.
So this is how we leave it. We're going to leave it like this. So for right now, so we left the happy room. We left our samples or sperms. And then we had to wait to make sure that everything was good to go. That was good to go. Now it was time to select the egg donors. And then the big question, who's going to be the baby mama and the surrogates and what's going to happen because we are doing a double process and we're going to talk about what a double process means.
And we're also going to talk about how I was shamed by the gay community too.
Yeah.
I want to make sure we put that one on one of those too.
But shame how?
Shame on you guys.
We were shamed.
We were deciding.
When you asked, because I
asked a question, which is actually good that we're doing this podcast too, because we're not going to shame anyone for asking.
Because we had there's somehow an option which doesn't work that way that you get to choose whether you want a boy or a girl. Which, by the way, doesn't really 100% work that way. But so we'll talk about that later. Cheers for that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
cheers to
cheers to this first one.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving along.
If we really want to then summarize this, why surrogacy and why we decided then to do this now and talk about it.
Well, why surrogacy? The obvious is you have so many options. Which is funny because we didn't address this, but a lot of people will tell you, well, why not just find a woman, or find a friend? They'll do it for free. Which thank you so much member. For so many of those who actually offered to do it for free. But we,
sorry, this one was a good one. This one was a really good one. Pero ve al campo, en la República Dominicana, hay muchísimas mujeres que quisieran tener un hijo de ustedes.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that was a recommendation. And, the legalities, and we've seen some horror stories. And we said, no, but why surrogacy? You have so many options. Foster, go out and do it on your own, or surrogacy. So that's why we decided on the surrogacy route.
And then when you think about it, now that we have the opportunity to básicamente recordar esos momentos and be a voice for those that are interested on doing a process like this one, they can just use us as a reference. Maybe, obviously, we don't have all the answers. Every process is different, which is something that we want to highlight. Yeah. Every surrogacy process is very unique and different.
And also, if you are wondering why now, like why are you guys waited to this whole like 18, 20 months later? We haven't slept for too much. And now is when we can actually talk about it, which I'm sure at some point we'll talk about caring for a newborn or whatever the case may be, but there's no sleep. So now that we're somewhat rested.
Yeah. I mean, we still look like we still
look like shit.
Like him out of...
But now we can share our experience and hopefully help someone out there. And I want to just add this before we end this episode is, I never had that problem where, what it felt like to be a dad or that whole stigma if you're too feminine or if you're, or if you're gay or, men shouldn't have babies if you come from a religious background. I come from a very religious background, which was told to me all the time. You'll get to know me a little better. I'm very defiant. Your words for me are, really don't mean much.
And that's something that we're going to talk about, how we actually address that to our family and how our families... Yeah, but we want to make sure people know what we're talking about in this podcast, right?
Yeah, no. But the point that I'm trying to drive home is that, I've gotten many emails and I've gotten text messages, and I know of some even personal friends who said, I would love to be a dad, and I know that even without them saying it, they think they don't have the right to be a dad, or they don't have the right to start their own family, or they don't really have the right to do anything that someone told them that, that they can't or shouldn't. So that's one of the main reasons and the core reasons of why we're doing this, because we hope that it might shed some light. And I'm not saying inspire you to go and have kids, but I can tell you that at least you know that it is an option, It
is an option. And of course, next episode we're going to get into the egg donor. How did we choose the surrogates? Why are we doing? Because this journey is not over. The funny thing is that we have our first baby and the journey is not over. Why are we choosing a double process? And of course, we're going to talk about when the transfers fail the first time and what happens next, and the craziness that goes into finding the surrogates, making sure that they are the right person to carry your baby. But before we leave, I have a question, right? And this is a very important question.
Okay.
All right. When you were in the happy room, were you thinking about me?
No.
I
was not. I wasn't. I was trying to think of what was going to stimulate me the most at that moment.
Oh, it wasn't me? Este cuerpo tropical y...
No, it was more so. I was trying to think of...
Y jugoso para ti?
You know what? To be quite frank and honest with you, I was ready to pop anyway. I was just way too many days, or TMI, but it was so many days where you're just like... Just with the fact that someone tells you no, you can't do something. So I wasn't even thinking about... I wasn't thinking about anything. I was ready, like, you know what? I'm just ready to get out of here. And I was starving. And I love to eat. So after that, I was just ready to go eat something.
Well, cheers to that.